It's time.
For part 2 of the Brandon Yates commission tracks ranking. For this video, I'll not be going over any of the commissions that were used in part 1. So that was back then, when those were all the commissions that he had done. Now it's now, obviously, where I'm looking at all the commissions he's done now, which, given the sheer pace this man works, could be outdated in about a day. Instead of, going back over and, blah blah blah, I'll just say what tracks are around it. I'll say what the track I'm talking about at any given time is ranked above. And if you really want to rank everything, you can just sift through it and figure out what my definitive ranking is, if you're crazy. Of course, you can go check out that original video and also Brandon Yates himself, both linked in the description and at the end card of the video, though there are 2 tracks I will not be including. The Fight rages on because, frankly, the song is one to me that really sounds like it needs vocals and feels a bit naked without it. Not to say it's bad or anything, just eh. And Remnants of the Soul, because if I listen to the instrumental, my height levels for the vocal version would be too high and I'll have a heart attack. I am quite excited for that. There's likely over 100 tracks here, so let's not waste time. We'll start with what I think of the newest vocal tracks though, and then go into what I think of the instrumental ones. I'm not going to rank the vocal tracks, because I tend to change up my rankings of them all the fucking time, and it's just not worth the time for me to go through, and then when I actually get to recording, it'll be different to how it was when I wrote it, so I'll just say what I think of them. Sins of Liberty is excellent. It adds to the original instrumental in a way that is incredible. I think the vocals really complement the track, and I caught the reference to Warhammer Doom in the lyrics, which was pretty cool. I like this one a lot. Soaring the Stars is... I fucking love this. This has that perfect cheese and ham that I fucking adore. You could put that into an untoasted sub, and by golly gosh, I'm not the one in the group that's going to be eating it. It's such a fun track. I can listen to it for hours, and when I was going through songs, I ended up just completely forgetting the track that he released before the vocal version of this one, and I had to go back to that one. This is just so good, so fun, I adore this. Life is a Highway to Hell might not count as a vocal track, but it does have words in it, and the song has thrown me for such a loop that the only way to retain a semblance of my sanity is to just call it one and not have to rank it. This track is strange. It's good, it's really good, but I do not know what to think about it. It has thrown me for a complete loop. Thanks, Brandon. Love you, bro. Galactic Commanders is just another fucking banger of a vocal track. The cheese is beyond anything, and I'm all for it. If anything was going to make me fully love Star-Lord vs. Commander Shepard, it would not be this, because I don't know how the Death Battle track would be able to top this if it was to happen. But God, I'd love to see it do so, because it'd be spectacular. It's a phenomenal song. And at last, Hot Shot Justice is going for a Rammstein vibe, and fucking hell, I love Rammstein to death. Of course I'd fucking love this track so much. I love it! Every vocal track so far that isn't the one I don't know what to say about has blown it out of the fucking water this year. I can't stress how much I love this track. It has both the vibe of a Rammstein song and the broken German of Inferno Cop's actual theme. While still feeling like it perfectly fits both characters, it's just so great, I can't get enough of it. So anyway, now we can go into the instrumental ones, which is obviously going to start on a bit of a negative note, because this is a ranking, it's how it fucking works, and we'll progressively go up to the ones that I love. Stoop Ed Stars. This is just not for me. It sounds unique, yes, but also just kind of annoying. I don't know, it just doesn't really sound as fun as the other goofy cartoon commissions. It just comes off as sort of just noise. I'm just not a fan. Borderline Chaotic. Before I say anything about the song, I want to note that I do support the matchup. Emerl is goated, and this is a cool match, and the guy who made it is someone that I am friends with. However, this is one of those tracks where I will recognize the quality, but it's not for me. I like bits of it, and I understand that this music does fit the characters and the matchup and the tone and all that. It's just personally, this is not a musical style I'm a particularly huge fan of, so this is just a situation where my own musical tastes are something that even Brandon can't always get past. So, I mean, if you enjoy it, more power to you, but not my thing. Verbing the Noun. Look, I'm not going to say this song is incredibly generic and has no identity, but it kind of is, and kind of doesn't. It's not the worst thing I've heard, and honestly, I probably enjoy more than a few songs, but even those songs I like less, I can generally say I'm more going for them. I guess maybe that was the point. I mean, it does sort of sound like it was going for the most stock Brandon Yates sound, like you were meant to be able to call this the Brandon Yates track of all time. Edit, I read the description. I was right. Total Despair. I'll be honest, I actually don't know what about this song doesn't do it for me, but it just doesn't. This is, I don't know. I like bits of it, but it sounds cluttered, weird. I can't say I outright dislike it, because, as I said, there are portions I enjoy, but there's something about this track that just does not work for me, and I wish I could explain it, but it might just be one of those things where it just doesn't vibe with me. Heroes of Space and Time. It's not a bad track by any means, but it's not particularly exciting to me. For the most part, it often just sounds like the Doctor Who theme with some fantasy elements from Legend of Zelda. And I can get that, it's fine, I do like the Doctor Who theme. But it also just doesn't give me anything to remember or really care about. It's nothing okay, but... it's nothing... fuck. It's nothing crazy, but it's okay. Empty Underworld. This track is good. It has a unique enough sound, though not one I'm crazy about. And while overall I don't find myself super interested, I do find that there are some moments here and there that I'm really into. It's not much more to say, but just didn't click with me the way I think it should have. Armored Clod. I don't know why, but this track just doesn't do it for me. I like it well enough, and I think it's quite unique, which is worth points, and it certainly stands out. But for some reason, this just is not my tempo, I guess. Imperium. Imperium is a track that I like, but also want to be able to get more from it than I do. I like the usage of Star Wars music, and I think that works well, and I get the vibe it's going for. But given how much I have gushed over Dawn of War's music and how the Imperial Guardsmen at their best are depicted as these sentinels who will fight to the bitter end no matter what, represented by the hidiness of their music, this sort of just feels off to me. Of course, that's not Brandon's fault, it's likely just not in the reference material or prompts he was given to have that kind of vibe. Obviously, if this is the commissioner's vision, then absolutely, I hope they fucking love it, honestly. It's still a good track. It's just, personally, I would have preferred if it leaned more to the Guardsman side, and the song itself, it's not crazy to me. Calrophobia? Sure, it's just a track that doesn't do it for me. I don't actively dislike it, though it was initially going to be a bit lower, because it really didn't click with me at the start. But about 1 minute 55 seconds into the song, it changes up a bit, and for a while there, that really got me. I liked that a lot. It was enough to get it up here. However, I'm aware that the intention was to make a horror chase sequence song put in verses, and I guess personally those things are just separate in a way that I don't think work sufficiently to hit me right. Like, when I think of the two most iconic horror chase themes that any fucker on the street would know, it's Halloween and Friday the 13th, and they're very minimalist. And that minimalism is what I really like about them. Like, in the Halloween theme, for a lot of it, there's nothing but piano, and even when they start adding the backings, it's really just the piano that's the main thing. And it bursts into an orchestra after the terror has been built up, so it's like it starts with tension, leads into, oh shit, I'm scared shitless, and just keeps going there. And likewise, Friday the 13th doesn't do a whole lot with this theme either, and the most memorable theme is the vocalizations. These things just don't strike the same chord as verses to me. I'm well aware though, I'm doing essentially a musical lecture in reference to a guy I'm about to spend most of this video gushing over, while also opening myself wide up for him to just punch me in the face and prove me horribly wrong. But I mean, you know, if he does prove me wrong, why would I be upset? It would mean we get a banger track, and like, who am I to tell him what he can or can't do? It'd be like him trying to tell me how to have a bad opinion. War's End. War's End's fine, has some moments that I like involving Attack on Titan's first opening, and the rest is also good. I also find all I can really remember from it is the Attack on Titan stuff, and there are other things even among Brandon's own catalogue of tracks that I think of before this in that regard. Compound Engine. While I admit that Compound Engine goes way harder than I expected, I also don't particularly find myself too terribly hyped for it. By no means do I think it's bad, I just find it to be a perfectly serviceable, high-speed, action-sounding track, which, hey, I mean, that feels like it's all I'm trying to be, so it works. Panels of Paper. As it stands, Panels of Paper is a good track, but it's held back by the nature of the commission. Yes, this track was made for the sake of being used for a crossover Coliseum episode. Yes, I know about Smash Bracket and Ink. Did you not notice him being in Sarge vs. Homelander? Stop asking me about it. Anyway, the track is good, it works well in context, but it is naturally held back a bit by the extremely long intro that makes nearly the first full minute kind of ineptly lame. And it feels a wee bit more repetitive and strangely paced than other tracks, which just feels like it's part of the nature of the track and like why it was made. It's still good when it does kick in, but you can tell it's been composed with like the intention of being a backing track. Image of a Master. Image of a Master is a good track, and I actually enjoyed it a good deal more on my second listen as opposed to my first, but it didn't go too much higher up in my rankings. I just enjoyed it a little bit more. I don't really have much to say beyond I think it sounds good. Airs of Wind. This is going to be lower, but when I re-listened to it, there was this nice little bit that kicks in like for the middle of the song that I missed somehow, which gave it a very uplifting and heroic feel that made me happy inside, so that bumped it up higher. It's not blowing my mind, but you know what? It's a good song. I like it. Nightmare. I don't think I felt this confused about a matchup since Yang vs Infernape, but as it stands, this track's kind of weird, but it's saved by the ending being really cool. I like that. That ending bit of the song, brilliant. But what really weirds me out is that most of this track ends up giving more Halloween vibes than Nightmare on Elm Street. Maybe that's just me. Yeah, it's good. I'm just very confused. Speaking of confused, Ketchup and Flushdown. I'm not crazy about this track, but I do get what it was going for. The majority of the track being like a training montage and the last bit being the actual fight is very unique. But as it stands, a good majority of it just sort of blends together and makes the song feel both strangely short and overly long at the same time, with the ending bit being really nice to break it up. I don't know, it's a good track that I'll listen to and I do enjoy, but I'm not really feeling it as much as I think I should. Severed Moonlight. This is another track that I feel like I should like more, because I like a lot of the components that have gone into it. Each portion sounds really nice and it's overall really good, but for some reason I find myself just tuning out every now and again, and I just don't know why. That has dropped it a little, but not much. Maybe I'll figure it out. Or maybe the 3 brain cells bouncing around up here are just dropping the idea and going to forget about it very soon. Ride the Verdant Wind. For what it's worth, I really like it. It has a very majestic sound that perfectly matches what I imagine is a battle between 2 people riding dragons. I don't know Cloud at all. But while I do find this track to be amazing at the start and for a lot of it, I also kind of find myself tuning out near the end because it feels like it lacks a level of variance. I don't know, it sounds like the same thing for a bit of it, and like I do like that feel. Like you will catch me listening to the Millennium Battle theme for hours if something isn't there to slap me out of it. But for some reason, this one just doesn't work as much for me. It's not even like the track doesn't have a degree of variance. It does. I don't know why it loses me. Sailing on the Sun. This track was really close to being on the road of I like it, but it's a bit samey throughout in a not entertaining way. But the ending of this track is great. Like, it gives us sort of vibe I expect from a beast of a man like Whitebeard. It gave it a lot of points. I really like the ending of this track. And overall, it's still a good track, yeah. Steel Simulacrum. There are some parts of this track that I quite like, I think are really good, but overall, it's just good, yeah. It hits that good metallic sound I expect, but I don't remember much of it outside of the ending. Scourge of the Dark Side. Scourge of the Dark Side is pretty good, and that's all I have to say. Ring of Blood. Ring of Blood is good, but another one I don't have much to say on. I heard the Harry Potter theme in there a few times, but not much else stuck with me. I enjoyed it in the moment, and then moved on. Wake the Dragon. This track is very upbeat and fun. It sounds like a friendly sparring match where neither character actually dies. I don't dislike that. It didn't stick with me, but it is very unique, and I quite enjoy it. Yeah, I mean, if you're up for just like a very fun song that doesn't feel like the end of the world, I absolutely would say go check Wake the Dragon. Ghoulish Parasite. This song really enforced to me how mixed my feelings on dubstep are, because I love some moments of this and just don't care for others. I think when the song is just dubstep is where it loses me. It's just not my thing. I can go with techno and synth, but dubstep I guess is just where I draw the line maybe? Though I'm sure I've enjoyed dubstep before, and some tracks down the line of this list maybe even use it quite a bit, and I have enjoyed it. But in this case, it wasn't for me. Now, when dubstep was complementing other stuff, then I was all for it, because it had a level of oomph behind the other instruments that I really appreciated. And combined with some more emotional tones later and earlier on from the dubstep segments, and even during some of them, I quite like the song overall. There are just a few bits where the dubstep takes center stage, and coming down to my personal subjective musical taste, it lost me a little bit. Crown Shield Heroes. It's a decent track. I have very little to say about it beyond that, honestly. Sorry? Spirit's Hell. There's nothing wrong with this track. It's good, but I just don't find it too memorable for some reason. No, it's just pretty alright. Blue Moon. I wasn't too sold on this song before, but now I'm actually kind of into it. There's this kind of epic vibe behind it, and it really gets across the power Rin has behind his sword. There's also a good deal of speed as well, fitting Adam. If anything, I say the only problem with this track is that it doesn't really reflect Adam very well, because it's not completely lame and is not wasting its potential. Thankfully though, this does mean Rin gets a good track, and that's okay because Rin is awesome. Gods of Combat. The big draw to this track is obviously the musical choice, going with a very Aztec sound and apparently using actual Aztec instruments too, which is extra based. It gives it a very unique and very cool sound, sounding at some points almost like it could be played off as diegetic music taking place within the world of the fight. Like when they're fighting, they have their worshippers, I guess, playing the music that they're fighting to. Beyond that though, I don't find much more super memorable, but the very unique musical style gets it a ton of points, and for that, I do quite like it. Now when are we going to get Kotal Khan versus Joe Swanson as a commission? Echoes of the Future. This is a really solid track throughout, but what really got it over the line is the last 50 seconds, because it goes really hard there. Even with that, track overall, still good. Endless Fate. Again, it's a good track, but the ending seems to be what strikes me the most. It goes a lot faster, I feel, or maybe I'm just going senile, I don't know. Zero Luck. It's hard to say this song feels much like Konosuba, and I don't know ReZero enough to comment on how it sounds in that regard, but I still really like it. It sounds almost unusually heroic for an asshole like Kazuma, but that's not really a huge detriment. What this song kinda sounds like to me is almost like an anime opening without lyrics. Couples Night Out. It's a good track, starts off kind of atmospheric and also has another moment later on that's a bit more low-key, but I like the stupid honking sound that plays at the end of these moments that really gets the wackiness going. It makes it feel like the character's wackiness is affecting the musical flow, like they're dictating when it's getting real and when they're actually fighting. Maybe it's a little bit too heavy for the matchup, but given Neo's association with the song Die, I can forgive it. This is a really nice track for a rare 2-on-2 matchup. Kraken and Assassin. I like it. It's pretty good, it goes quite hard, has that sort of low-key but still exciting assassination classroom feel, and definitely sounds like a Squid Games. Receive and Twist You. I enjoyed this one a decent bit. The chorus, I suppose, is really great and sticks with me, and while I do wish it stuck in my head a bit more, I really enjoyed it in the end. Hirsch's Railgun. Another case of a track that I enjoy, I think was good at the moment, and it doesn't particularly stick with me though. Fight for Sore Eyes. God tier name aside, this track's really good, and again, I don't have much more to say. I like it, I think the bit around the end of it especially is really good, and I'd say that for being placed lower. The Joke Strikes Back. Is this the only Marvel vs. DC commission at the time of me writing this? It might be. And of course the matchup chosen is a one-sided stomp. Anyway, the track itself was pretty good, with a fun, upbeat feel and a few more intense moments to match the hecticness of each character, with a fun ending that ramps up. Is it as good as Anno Believability or Mad Laugh Riot? No, but it doesn't need to be, it's still really nice. Fateful Encounter. It's a really long track, and it does lose me like this Heartless Empire at points. I honestly can't bring myself to be too bothered by that though. I like the unique Arabian musical sounds that match a battle in the desert, and from my limited knowledge of Floss, which is just his design here and his association with Iskandar in the track, seems to fit. It's a good track, but one that's so long I do drain out at points. Humanity's Last Hope. This track is really good. I think the beginning is peak, it's so great how it builds up to the real bang a lot better than some other tracks, and the middle where it kicks up is really good, and the ending is fantastic. Overall, it's a fantastic track, one that really feels fitting for the two. But I don't know, something about it maybe just doesn't strike me exactly as I want. But, I mean, I still really enjoyed it. Wait a minute, is the Humanity's Last Hope Lies Beyond the Stars lyric in Galactic Commanders a reference to this track? Harbinger's Curse. This song skirts the line between the, this just sounds like another song side of my brain, and the, I love how much this sounds like another song side of my brain. Both sides that contradict one another, but are both part of me, and in the end, it comes down to a vibe thing, and in this case it leans more to the second one, because I like this a lot. The Bad Luck Charm vibes get close to making me feel like I'm listening to that song, but then something will kick in and snap me out of that, and boom, I'm fully invested in the song again. Thumbs up. Scarlet Soul. I like this track a lot, it's fast, energetic, feels good for a high-paced sword fight. I feel like it loses me at a few points, but not enough to get it too low. My Dread Burns With You. Maybe I'm just missing something or I'm getting fatigued here with all the persona, but I didn't really see anything super insane about it, but yet I thought it was still really good and I enjoyed it quite a good bit. I only added that thing at the start of this segment so I had something more to say. Blazing Queens. This is a really unusual sounding track and I don't dislike that. It has a strange mixture of jazz and sort of synthy rock, I think. It's quite interesting and I enjoy it. It has a bubbly sort of sound that definitely matches Makoto, while also a very smooth, effortless sound that definitely matches Makoto. So overall, good stuff. Hollow Abyss. I'm a fan of Hollow Abyss. I think it sounds quite epic and heavy. Like the vocalizations as always, and has a really good dark fantasy vibe. I dig it. Douchebag Shadows. This track sort of grew on me over time, though not massively past the initial jump from, wow, I don't like this, to, you know what, I do actually like this. It's a good song, and for the life of me, I don't know why I didn't like it the first time, because it is a bit of a banger. It sounds shockingly threatening for a My Little Pony track, but that's perfectly fitting with Terumi, and likely the Pony of Shadows too, I don't know it very well. And the extra sinister underscore to the whole thing works well for me too. Riddle Me Why, this track goes so strangely hard. It's particularly jovial and goofy, which is pretty good, and I enjoy it a good bit. I don't have much to say on it though, it's a song that speaks for itself. Or doesn't, because it is an instrumental one. Blade of Guilt. A good track that has a very heavy tone and good speed mixed with a feudal Japanese sound at points. I quite like it, though I also kind of wanted it to go a little harder, but it's still great and a good track for a base Guilty Gear character. A Cold Inevitability. This track was initially quite a bit lower, but the more I listen to it, the more I really like the ending. And I don't mean Brandon's epic sponsorship moment, I mean when the song dips a bit and starts sounding really dynamic and less big balls. I do like how foreboding and big it is, but I'm starting to find more and more that a lot of the tracks that go for just foreboding and nothing else sort of just blend together for me. This is however one that has a little bit at the end that stands out, and it's kinda glorious. Invasive Species. Yeah, I mean, it's a good track. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It has that sort of weird old spacey video game vibe, like it's an SNES game boss track, or even main theme. It helps with this matchup naturally worked in a way that allows that sort of good guy versus bad guy vibe that really seems to speak through this song. I don't know, that's a weird way to put it. It sounds like a good guy versus bad guy song, and that works. Good stuff. Space Ducks. In space. I quite enjoyed that. It had a good cartoony space vibe without sounding like just a bunch of random cartoon sounds. It sounds like a song that really matches the goofy vibe, while also being a very adventurous, fun sci-fi track. I'm surprised at how much I like this. Evil Angel. You know, I like how this starts sounding kind of innocent until it becomes hectic and progressively more and more insane and crazy, until it's a full-blown final boss anime video game JRPG theme song that sounds incredibly imposing and terrifying. I like the transition, it's nice. Blood-Stained Strides. I'm certain that as time goes on, this track is going to get higher, but there comes a point where I have to stop re-listening to the same track over and over, bumping it up every time, and I need to move on. It's a very solid track that gets that hard-rocking Metal Gear Rising Revengeance sound going along with the necessary techno elements, that's all I have to say. Brothers of Destruction. It's alright, sounds cool, has a bit of Dangerous Gaze in it, which is interesting, but there are a few times it feels a bit too actiony for Undertaker. Regardless, not bad. Resurgent Titans. This track is another one of those, it's really good, but I'm not super remembering it. But in the moment, it's really good. It sounds very ominous and powerful, very large in scale, and the vocalizations match Shin Godzilla very well. So yeah, it's pretty good. Cross My Heart. This is a pretty beautiful track. I really like its vibe and tone, and it comes off as a real, well, Kingdom Hearts vibing track. It works well for me, and it's good. Return to Ben. Yeah, it's good. I like the chorus a lot, and it's overall good too generally. I don't got much to say. Last Breath's Embrace. The only way to counteract the sheer baseness of Lindis is to put her in the same room as some lame stuff like League of Legends. Regardless, I think this track is pretty awesome. It sounds exactly like a Fire Emblem boss battle, which I guess was the point, and I say as someone who has only ever played Blazing Blade I like this, but how much is biased just because I like Lindis, and apparently she wins the matchup too? Well, shut up. Mighty Morphin Hero Time. I love the Power Rangers theme, so when I think I can hear that or elements of it, naturally I'm gonna like it. But beyond that, the track overall is also very solid. It sounds pretty exciting and intense, and it gives that sort of fast-paced feel that you'd imagine if they're constantly swapping out what they're using to fight with at a rapid pace. All I have to say. Zero Paths Left. This track sounds a bit like Thundershroud sometimes. I don't mind that, because I love Thundershroud, but it's also a good track. I like it, sounds quite nice, it makes my ears do a happy. But the most I can say is that this song must have used like the same musical inspiration as something as Thundershroud, I'm not sure though. Eternal Fall. Good track, don't have much to say. The usage of sound bites is kind of unique, and the fall is pretty great in the track. But yeah, I mean, it's just another really good imposing track. Artificial Fantasy. I don't have much to say about this one beyond good job on combining the sounds of Dragon Ball and Final Fantasy, because this works surprisingly well. When the piano, I think, takes center stage is a real highlight, especially contrasted with the more Dragon Ball style rock that matches the androids. It really gets that vibe of the androids across, at least to me, and sounds very Final Fantasy. Yeah, it's got other points too, which is great. But, I will say, it's hard not to read this matchup as number 17 and 18 versus Alpha Rad. Mugen Shiryoku. Is that how you say it? I don't care. It's a track, I don't know how to feel about it beyond I like it, because it's good, but it's very strange. Got to hear some Dangerous Gaze, which was nice, but primarily it has a very different sort of synthy sound to it, and a very unique chorus I didn't expect. That being said, the unusuality did work for me, and it makes it quite memorable. Celestial Cinder. I like this track, it's pretty low-key at points, but that gives it a strange feel that vibes to me, with the choir-esque vocalizations, the single instrument of which the name currently escapes me making up the start, and a lot of moments during the song. It feels quite mythical and enigmatic, and I like that. Unbreakable. Unbreakable is a very solid track, with a very heroic anime protagonist tone that, I mean, yeah, that fits, doesn't it? It feels like the sort of track that will play with the protagonist back against the wall against a big foe, and they either come up with some great strategy to win, or they just scream really hard and get a new form. Even the small emotional sounding bit it has feels like it fits that vibe. At the same time, while it sounds really good, there's a small part of me that feels like it might be missing something. I don't know, I feel like this track is meant to have lyrics to it, though who am I to say? I'm not Brandon. This might just come down to the musical references or the fact that I'm weird, but I kind of want to hear this with lyrics added. Never second best. It's a shockingly good track. I think it mills Dangerous Gaze and Vegeta's Super Saiyan theme quite well, which I like, because Super Saiyan's theme is great. Fruits of War. This is a really good track, and I do like it, but I've always felt like listening to it that it was on the cusp of breaking out into something truly amazing, but didn't get there. That being said, it doesn't hold back enough for me not to like it. I think it's really good and has moments that kick ass. Super Activated Life. A very fun track that worked way better for me than Jenny's closely released other track. With a very good usage of the techno bits in conjunction with hype guitar work to make a track that sounds like an intense battle between characters like these. I like the bit in the middle as well where it slows down before powering back in, but maybe I'm just a sucker for those kind of dips, I'm realizing. Play and Beware. This song just made me smile. When I first heard it and that Goosebumps theme kicked in, I just smiled, you know? And the song overall is good too, but like that's the big point. I do like how childish and goofy the song is, because it juxtaposes the tone of the matchup, while still working in those serious, suspenseful horror moments that fit Chucky. It's the best of both worlds, with either side still matching the other to a degree, so overall, it's quite solid. One Night at Luigi's. Brandon Yates has peaked. There will never be a better matchup than this on Brandon Yates' Commissions track. Anyway, this track is also really good. Obviously not much of a battle track, but it has this really fun vibe to it of like just a goofball running around in a comedic horror bit within the Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria. And the combination of Luigi's Mansion music and The Living Tombstone manages to work really well and create a song that doesn't quite make me imagine a fight, but it does make me imagine Luigi's reactions to things as he runs around the haunted pizzeria. It's a great matchup though. Wolfang Justice! For a Yamcha track, this goes surprisingly hard, and I'm all for that. It sounds like a fun and intense, action-packed battle, and I love that. I love the intensity especially. It makes me picture a genuinely extremely tightly choreographed and well-animated fight between Yamcha and a girl with too many swords. Yamcha Pog. Devil May Burn. Devil May Burn might be my least favorite of the Devil Does Whatever track commissions, and honestly, pretty wide margin, but I don't think it's bad in the slightest. It blends together the music of Ruby and Devil May Cry really well. And I do really like I Burn, so that bias is coming into play here too. But while it does manage to be a really good track, it doesn't stick with me much, likely because it sounds so much like I Burn. But, at the same time, I think it's really good, and I enjoy it a lot. Wrongfully. Wrongfully is in a place I can describe as, hey, that's a good fantasy style track. Not much else, but it is a really good fantasy style track. I think the piano is really nice. I didn't notice it the first few times, but it does enhance the track a lot. It's just that, like, yeah, it's a good fantasy track. Love it. Bloodline Regicide. It's a very epic track that matches Final Fantasy well. It sounds like a cool Final Fantasy boss track, and that's really the main thing for it. I like it a lot, and I can listen to it a good bit. It sounds like something that would play in Final Fantasy, and that's a big accolade, and I love the vocalizations as well. Shining Nostalgia. This was a surprising bop to me. While obviously it has the element of tragedy and has the underlying tone of a "they gonna die" song, it's also quite catchy in spite of that, and I enjoyed it a good bit, honestly. Bites the Carnage. I really didn't want to like this track, but it combined Kira's theme with Chorus of Carnage. So, yeah. Flow of the Blizzard. Hearing the Final Fantasy main theme was kinda weird in this one, and not in a bad way. I get why, given Final Fantasy XIV is a pretty big part of the series. It just seems odd for a character like Y'shtola. I mean, I guess Dissidia NT did probably put him more on the map for non-14 players than she was prior, though. Overall, I like the orchestral sound. I think it really fits Final Fantasy and World of Warcraft, and I especially like the moment near the end where it starts to build up in tension and intensity. Those are very similar things, though not to an extent that foregoes the serene sort of sound it had prior. It goes down to a soft piano afterwards as well, which is quite nice. Ultrasonic. The choice to go with the Phase 2 Solaris boss theme as a reference track was fucking brilliant, because that's probably my favorite song in the entire Sonic franchise. And it works so well for such a high-paced and energized matchup. This song captures in 3 minutes the sheer speed and excitement of the fight, with a really great sound that is a total bop. Fuck yeah, dude! This is way better than it has any right to be. Then again, Dragon Ball and Sonic music, they do kind of go hand in hand, so. Execution Guard. This track I thought was just a good but kind of basic metal track with heavy guitar and percussion. Then it decided to be that, but even better once the Minimark hit in, and it became fucking awesome. I love this. The mixture of everything goes so well and makes this just so great. Echoing Light. This song is so threatening. It has an unusual cosmic horror sound to it, like something's approaching that you can't see and you couldn't comprehend anyway. Like darkness is rising up, and no matter how much you try, you won't be able to stop it. It's strangely powerful despite not being particularly heavy or full of the general big dick bad guy vibes. It's more subtle, while also being not subtle at all, if that makes any sense. It just really works for me. I love this. Die and Die Again. This is just a really solid, very Japanese sounding track, like feudal Japan, none of that anime crap. It's a very good song that I like. Yeah, maybe a tiny bit too long for me with how samey it gets, but not to the extent where it's actually docking points. 7 Seas. Some people might be wondering whether pirate rock or pirate metal is a genre, and the answer is yes. The most prominent one that comes to my mind is Ailstorm. I'd recommend checking them out if you're interested because they are awesome. My personal favourite song is probably Captain Morgan's Revenge. Anyway, 7 Seas is also awesome. It manages to mix the heavy rock and metal vibes of Final Fantasy VII with a pirate motif to create one of the more unique tracks. Though there are others like it in Brandon's catalogue, I think. I believe I recognise the One Piece song that's used here as well, but I wouldn't know the name of it or anything. But it gives a song an identity of its own that ensures that I do remember it. It is probably my favourite of the piratey tracks he's done. The Devil You Know. This track I had to listen to a few times because I kept getting distracted, and it's good, yeah. I just like how it sounds. Unlike a few others I have up here, I don't have much to say beyond it. Really vibed with me when I listen to it. No Strings Attached. I didn't really think I'd enjoy this much based on the opening bit. Like, it was good, but nothing special. But then around the 40-second mark, it becomes strangely heroic sounding, which from what I know doesn't fit these two at all. But this song sounds almost heroic at points, or calming, or just generally good-spirited, which I don't know if that fits, but I do actually quite like this sound. I think there's an acoustic guitar in it as well, which works really well to complement the song. Heartbeat. This is an amazing techno song. It's really catchy and the rock and roll elements are worked in very well. The start, including Flowey's laugh, is almost haunting, and it sets the right tone right away, with the track feeling like some hectic boss battle, which it would be to an extent, wouldn't it? And the music has enough dips and changes in it that it makes it feel like the boss is changing forms as the fight goes on. It makes me imagine the fight even if I barely know Blixer. Really, it just makes me imagine Flowey, but I mean, that's not the song's fault, is it? There's even a segment of this track that feels like it's on the cusp of breaking out into a full Devil May Cry song, which is kinda crazy. Like, there's a bit that I can totally imagine playing in like some enemy encounter room on the street of Devil May Cry 3. I can totally dig this, and I listen to it all day, but I don't have time to. Evolution Zero. This track is really fun. It's catchy, it's great, and it feels pretty grand, which matches. Given how much I want some form of this matchup on Death Battle, it makes me happy to see it in general too. I guess if there was any issue I had, that it feels more like a Getter vs Marzinger song than specifically Emperor and Zero, because those two are very eldritch, I think, so the fast pace feels almost unfitting. But that doesn't stop the song itself from being really good. Dominion. This track is a lot like Fantasy Aspect, but better. It's a great, foreboding, and epic fantasy track, but better, and also uses Warhammer Fantasy, which I never expected to see honestly, let alone someone that predates Age of Sigmar. Stick It To 'Em. This song perfectly captures the sheer chaos and hecticness this fight would possess. I love how it balances tracks that match each character before it all comes together at the end and gets all nuts. It's a fun track. Art of Germicide. This is basically not even a versus track. This is, as Brandon says, way more of a buddy cop track, but in that regard, that makes it a perfect versus track for this matchup. It has the sort of funky, groovy vibe that I can just imagine for an Osmosis Jones fight. Something with a lot of personality and style over crazy action and scale. Obviously, because they're smaller than people. I just really vibe with this track. It gets my footsie steppin'. Breath of Determination. The best way to describe Breath of Determination is that it sounds like the song you'd hear when the protagonist finally gets through their emotional hangups and realizes themselves. Or the song that plays when the protagonist finally realizes what they have to do to stop the bad guy. Or the song that plays when the protagonist finally gets through to one of the villains and convinces them to switch sides. Any of those situations is what this song sounds like. It has that melodic, upbeat sound that fills you with hope. It's a track that really fits the vibe of a positive moment where everything goes well, or at least the moment where, despite all the despair you're feeling, there's something or someone that will just really assures you to never let go of that hope. That's the feeling I get from this song, and it's pretty great. It's just a really good track, and I enjoy it. Violet Requiem. I really don't know how to describe this song because I think the particulars just aren't in my vocabulary, but I think that's a violin or something to that effect in it that really adds a unique feel of elegance to this song. Like it's at a halfway point between being a fight to the death and an elaborate regal dance. It's a really unique track, and man, I'd like to see more like it, because as beautiful as a piano can be, this sounds really distinct. It can get across that regality, but also the hecticness I feel is played even better than on piano. Out of the Shadows. Out of the Shadows feels like a very good track, especially for this matchup. It has that sort of, I guess, urban ninja vibe, you could say, if that's a thing, that really works for me, feeling like it plays into both Daredevil's somewhat sillier comic elements, but not the ones so silly as to be unrecognizable from his grittier nature, and also just Leonardo in general. It also gives to me that vibe of them trying to figure out each other's skill, techniques, and limitations. Along with Leonardo trying to figure out how Daredevil is able to locate him and trying to nullify his presence as best he can, and use misdirection over pure stealth. It just has that air to it that I really enjoy. Like, they're really thinking a lot in the battle as opposed to it being about raw power, pure speed, or crazy technology. It's just pure skill. Oh, and it plays bits of the 2003 Ninja Turtles theme, and like, yeah, fucking 2003 Turtles represent, motherfucker. Remnants Underneath. This track is a surprising bop. For what it is, it has that sort of techno vibe that maybe doesn't super well match the characters, but does match their series. But what does match the characters is the sort of underlying uncomfortable vibe the song has. It has chanting to always make it feel like there's something underneath. The main beat is sort of slower and feels more foreboding, and the usage of scrambled glitching sounds matches both characters while also being something you can interpret in many ways. Is the glitching someone screaming in pain? Is it someone crying out as they tries to rise up? Is Garza trying to match the power of the human soul in the puppet? Who knows? It probably isn't meant to be read into too deeply, but I like it. Bleeding Respite. This track manages to make me feel like I'm listening to I'm the One and Eltham's theme Blood Drain without ever sounding like I'm just listening to those songs. It captures a perfect mixture of both of their vibes in a way that invokes the feeling, but not to the extent that I ever feel like just listening to the original song instead. I actually went to listen to the original songs after listening to this track, and then came back to Bleeding Respite again because I liked it that much. Then I went back to I'm the One because it's just a banger. This is a very solid track that I enjoy listening to. Midnight Sleuths. There, my tongue. This song starts immediately very similar to My Other Self, which I guess comes down to there being some Persona track associated with You that was used as inspiration for both songs. But past that thing that made me pause to go listen to that banger of a vocal track, I still like this one quite a lot. It just sounds really nice, with a light synth rock vibe, I guess, with what I think is a saxophone adding a nice hint of jazz to the mix as well. Really vibes with me, and I'm also interested in this mashup, which is a plus. A Light in the Midst. This track is really good. It has such an exciting feel that I can definitely associate with Magi, and that adventurous fun sound that accompanies an anime protagonist like Aladdin. It also has certain bits that feel like they highlight Aladdin's innocence along with mystic enigma. I can't speak much for Yugo, of course, as I haven't seen Wakfu, but I can only assume it matches him as well to an extent. This track is really great, and I love how well it works for Aladdin. Here's to the day we get a track for the goated Judah, Trials of Wisdom. This song sounds like a really good combination of guitar and piano, like more so than others even, and I don't know why. It has that elegant sound that matches a princess while maintaining a strong combat-focused tune that still feels like it retains the feeling of the fight. It's a fight, but one with a lot of regality to it, and I dig that. Ironheart. Fucking wow. I loved this track when I first heard it, and I love it even more now. This track is just stellar all around. It sounds like a really fittingly heavy and slow track I'd expect for a guilty character as slow as Potemkin against someone as slow as Taiga. And while it does feel like it goes really heavy into a particular Guilty Gear track, it doesn't bother me much, especially when the... what is that, a pipe organ? I don't know, something like that kicks in, adds this degree of awe to the song. Like, there's them fighting, and then there's them doing something completely insane. Like, yeah, they're throwing hands, but then suddenly, it'll dip into nothing but what I'm hesitantly referring to as that pipe organ, because I'm not sure, and that feels like the moment, like, Taiga drops his astral finish, but Potemkin just stands back up and keeps going after being exploded. Like, it's that sort of feel where, like, someone will do something insane, and the other guy will just walk out unharmed, that epic vibe. Then it goes back into the guitar and almost sounds close to a BlazBlue track for the next bit, which it just feels like the fight is kicking into a different gear and stage of the battle, leading into a 30-second conclusion where the winner comes out ahead. Like, it ends with the epic organ for the finishing blow too. I can imagine the fight to this song, and that's fucking awesome, because it sounds great, both what I imagine and what I hear, and it's a stellar track. The Chill of Death. It's strange to me that I really wasn't into this track, but paying more attention, I feel like it actually matches them really well. The sort of tragic chorus matches the tragedy of the Lich King and Arthas, and the more foreboding cold undertone matches the first Hassan. Part of the track matches the tragic king, while the other matches the death that comes for the tragic king. How quaint. Guilt of the King. So far, this is my favourite Fate track of Brandon's, and it slaps. It's a really good Guilty Gear track while containing the vocalizations present in most of Artoria's songs, being very heavy without losing out on the regality outside of times where it plays fully into the guitar work. It matches them really well, all leading up to when the guitar goes ham. Presumably in my head this is when Excalibur and Ride the Lightning blast out, and then it ends. I do really like this track. It bangs hard. Though I feel like if it prominently included something from This Day and Never Again, my all-time favourite Artoria and probably all-time favourite Fate track at all, this would have easily been among the top of the top for me. But it's still great. Replicated Chaos. Breaking news, Sonic and Mega Man music goes fucking hard together. I mean, what can I say about it? It's just so exhilarating and fun. There are moments where it sounds exactly like a Sonic boss, and moments where it sounds exactly like a Mega Man boss, and never does it sound like it's only one of those. It always sounds like it could be either, just shifting into different gears. The soft vocal cues at the end were a surprise for sure, but a welcome one. And overall, this sounds perfect to be modded into a fan game involving both X and Metal Sonic. There's even some sort of oddly funky jazz moment in the song that I can imagine being the two scanning each other and sort of tiptoeing around one another, concerned the other will attack and stop their scan. Evoke the Heart. This track really took me by surprise. The chanting at the start is very different from what we normally get, and it really matches at least Urza and all the trauma she went through in the past. From there we get a really nice track overall, with the recurring chant enhancing it throughout really well, all leading to a fantastic build up to the out of nowhere hard rocking and extremely exhilarating final segment of the song that goes so hard, ending on a note closer to what the characters are normally associated with. You can picture not just the fight, but also the exact pacing of the battle and what abilities and equipment will come out when, and it's so good. I didn't expect to like this matchup's track as much as I did, but I did. Entropy Now Descends. Am I a bit biased because this track uses the name that I came up with in my Marvel vs. non-DC season list video? Maybe, but also this track is great. It gets across that cosmic techno high scale feeling, that ever-encroaching doom that approaches, and the energy surging from within so well. Like, this is the kind of track that fits this matchup. It's all about the scale instead of blistering speed. It has a very heavy feel, and while there is speed, it comes from the percussion more than anything. The haunting vocalized chanting like some ancient ritual song calling down gods also really adds to it. I like this track a lot, it's excellent. God Complex, Part 1. Pure epic. What else is there to say? The first God Complex track is pure epicness incarnate. I fucking love the chanting in this more than almost any other track. It's so exciting and exhilarating while always retaining that godly presence. And I mean that, like, genuinely, this sounds like the kind of song that plays when the big final boss shows up. Probably God himself if it was a Final Fantasy title. It's spectacular. It's almost so epic that it's almost too epic for Goku Black. Like, this is straight up merge Zamasu type shit. That's how epic this track is. Fuck yeah, dude. God Complex Part 2. I'm kind of cheating here because to an extent, it's hard to consider this a separate track, but I think it's just as good as the first one, but differently. It's only really above it because I kind of consider them, like, together. This one doesn't have the same level of divine awe, but more that feeling of horror that befits the fucked up purple quagmire arm merged Zamasu. Like, this is when the battle stops involving endless pontification and people who love the sound of their own voice, but starts becoming one of hatred and a desire to see the other guy die forever. Both tracks are incredible and capture different elements of the mashup. Yeah, Brandon, you just had to show us that you can do different kind of tracks with the same match. I mean, I don't know why anyone was questioning whether you could make two different tracks of the same matchup, and literally Thunder Shroud and Reverse Rose, I think it was. Rose Reverse. I always struggle to remember between the Death Battle and the Sky one, but when Goku Black versus Reverse Flash's track and Mikas versus Blake's track exist, why are people even questioning if you can do two different tracks of the same matchup, like, honestly? Hatred for Humanity. I really like this track, and I don't like how much I really like this track. The guitar works so well for me here, I love every second of it. I love the dips in the song too, and I don't know Persona, but it sounds like Persona. And I love the guitar that sounds more Ruby-esque. I can't believe Brandon is making me like an Adam track this much. I mean, fuck! This vibes with me though. Hell's Rejection. This is a really weird one that it stumped me for a while, but I could tell I like it, but I couldn't tell how much I liked it. The start's decent, then it gets really nice, then it gets nicer, and it basically sounds like a Shin Megami Tensei boss theme that you would struggle to hear over the sound of repeated divine shots. I've played Shin Megami Tensei now. I kind of really dig how it is when it starts to get like the midway point. It sounds really catchy, it gets my head bopping, but it's strange because I don't know why I'm having such trouble deciding how much I like it. I'll say at least I really like it, and we'll just see where it ends up on the ranking when I put it somewhere. Dark Allegiance. This is amazing. This track manages to capture both sides of Vader and, from what I know, Mirak very well. Mirak? I still don't know how to pronounce it. Obviously, for the start and end, it's extremely foreboding, orchestral. The kind of music that plays before the character it's for is even on screen. It makes you go, oh shit, before you go, oh shit again when the character actually appears on the screen. It has that dark evil sound to it, without feeling all sort of too low-key or uninteresting like a few other tracks. But there's also a point that kicks in where it sounds sort of heroic and like a grand fun journey, which sort of gets the vibe of like Anakin Skywalker in his prime, his best days when he was happy. I don't know how that'd work into the fight, but I think it's just so good as a song, only for it to come crashing back down to reality as music befitting the Dark Lord he is now returns and ends the track. It sounds almost like a song that matches Vader's story up until Empire Strikes Back. It started out shrouded in darkness and misery. It became hopeful and granted him more joy than he thought possible. But in the end, it returned to hatred and scorn. What destiny lies for these two after the track's end? Who knows? But for one of these combatants, they will never live to see it themselves. Little Shining Light. This track just makes me feel happy. It's a song that embodies a nice, happy vibe, and I love it. It's just a great track for feel-good times. Feels sort of like the sort of thing you'd hear as the ending song to the finale of a show you love, with seeing a montage of everyone fulfilling their dreams, or even the song that plays with the main character that's just gone through some trauma and is trying to find themselves again and regain their smile, or really like a song for Jade and Yuki from Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's based. I love this genuinely. It's extremely good and I can't get enough of it. Sleeping Dragons. Wow, this is one that took me by surprise, even more than some of the others. I love the Asian tones to the music and how they play into the characters while working in the heavy rock and guitar and metal and shit. Stuff that plays into a martial arts fight. And I especially love when those two things come together and really add to one another in a complementary way. This track sounds exactly what I'd imagine a really high-paced martial arts fight with the sort of tone of Yakuza, or at least what little of it I've actually been exposed to, has. There's even like a little bit near the end which sort of stops and slows down. That sort of gives me the vibe of them like coming to respect one another's skill and slowly approaching each other for the final stanza of the battle. With the bit of the final battle starting off slower than the stuff from before, as if they have to ramp itself up because their stamina's depleted and they need to push themselves to get back to that, get that adrenaline going and really get back to how they were fighting at their best before. And then it suddenly ends. It's a great track overall. Midnight Magica. Midnight Magica is great. I want to say more about it, but I don't know what to say. I guess I just think it sounds really nice. But can he beat Goku? Fucking hell, man. I hate that I really love this. I didn't think that I would, but the song has a sort of innocent, fun vibe that pervades with Goku. That sort of feeling, like I said, he's always out to have fun in an innocent, childish way, even when he's trying to save everyone. The usage of various Goku motifs is expected, but it does enhance that feeling. And the Ultra Instinct theme also comes in to sound really epic, without losing that childish sound. It's a case where I really like Goku, and this song perfectly matches the epicness of Goku, but with that childish innocence with it. Which does in fact mean that Brandon Yates represented Goku better than Dragon Ball itself does sometimes. Deciphering Discord. Everything about this track just works for me. It sounds exactly as I imagined, having some sort of soft, gothic, horror, mystic cartoon vibe that fits both characters perfectly. But what makes it stick out is how the music shifts from fun and goofy to ethereal and uncomfortable, and how it remains in that more serious-ish foreboding tone, and ends like that. It just matches how I picture the progression of the battle, with them getting slightly more serious until they really show off the eldritch abominations they are, and it shatters the reality that's around, like far more than had been done previously in the battle. And I can picture the fight, and it sounds incredible. It's good track. Symbol of Hope. Symbol of Hope is just a fantastic track. It combines heavy guitar and rock sounds of Mario Aka with the more emotional piano bits befitting Danganronpa. It starts off sounding almost like a fucking Nightwish track, which is a massive compliment as I fucking love Nightwish. But it goes on into sounding like a fight track with a pretty generally heavy tone that matches the despairing side of Izuru and the power of Izuku. With a few more emotional beats and moments where the piano comes back around during the action to add a sort of beauty and elegance to the overall sound. I really like this track, and I think the only thing I would have wanted is maybe a bit of You May Run in there. I mean, maybe that You May Run, You Say Run. I feel like I heard a bit of it, but maybe that's just me, because no one else seems to be able to point it out. and I can't even point out when I thought I heard some of it. I just feel like that the song would tie it all together a bit better if it was added in. At the same time, I don't care. This song's really good as it is, and hey, maybe it isn't there, and my smooth brain and empty ear holes just didn't pick it up. In Semblance Forever. You broke me. This music is... It's very clearly inspired by the 2003 Ninja Turtles series more than other Turtles series, which is the best one, and I don't have any objections. And it's also got the inspiration from the classic first few volumes of RWBY, which had the best RWBY music, and I will not have any objections. How can I not love this? It blends those two styles perfectly, sounding exciting, actiony, but also funky and groovy, and also having moments that really highlight when something is a high-paced fight, and when things are slowing down. When This Will Be the Day kicks in too, fuck you, Brandon. This is really good. I mean, that volume of RWBY's music is my fucking weakness, and you combine it with 2003 Ninja Turtles, I can't take it. I love this track. Fuck this track. I'm being tsundere to a fucking musical track. Fuck you. Bloodlust. Man, this song really does it for me. I don't know why exactly, but I found this song extremely catchy and it gets stuck in my head every time I listen to it. And that's something I'm completely okay with, because it's quite good. Strangely, I have honestly little to say about it. It's just a song that's really good, but in particular clicks with me. It does sound like it could perfectly fit into a JRPG though, and I like that. 13th Halloween. Remember when I said something about how I shouldn't be commenting on what Brandon can't or can't do? Yeah, I wrote that Calibraphobia section way before this song came out, and don't I feel like a right lemon. I love this track. It's a track that it's great. It has that perfect mixture of a battle track's excitement with the minimalist simplicity of a slasher movie theme. The track is made up of things like Jason's breathing and that Friday-esque chant, the dramatic stings that you'd hear in those old slasher movies when something happens, and then the softer musical instruments to give that eerie, subtle feeling like from their themes. I think it's the piano that makes up the main instrument for this, or maybe I'm just deaf, but it works really well for the vibe of the song. This is a perfect slasher theme and a versus track combination, and as you can tell by how high this is, I really love it. It's genuinely so good, getting across that this is both a versus battle and a horror scene at once in a single track without sounding clunky or weird is worthy of applause. Kings of Spirits! This song starts out kind of just okay, mellow and relaxed. It works well, it comes off like they're just vibing or two, it's fine, it's not that deep, and then it progressively kicks harder and harder until it blows your fucking socks off with sizzling hot beats! Like when this track kicks in, I can't get enough of it. It sounds so good and works so well for me. I do like all the other stuff too, but there's nothing I dislike about the song. Like, it adds variety to the sound, and so it's nothing but the epic chorus, but that chorus is awesome! I loved it. There is a generally chill vibe for most of the song, and it dips and launches back into the bit I love, It oscillates as you'd expect, but I love it. I flip-flop on this one and the next one, which I prefer because they're so good. Starstruck Gunners. Maybe it's just from a sense of bias, seeing as Gunvolt is the one series I can wholly credit the Versus community for getting me into, and I do love the games, but I adore this track. It has that surprisingly alien, techno-electric vibe that matches Geo and Gunvolt perfectly. The whole time it sounds exactly like I'd imagine, with some most threatening, menacing moments that I didn't expect, but they work in the track, and low-key elements that make me imagine the two pausing the fight to talk to their partners about what the hell the other guy is, until it gets back into the high-speed action, which just sounds so fucking good, man. My ideal Gunvolt track, and while I don't care much about Gunvolt himself, not like I dislike him or anything, it's just so good. I don't really know what else to say. I think the electrical alien sound is the perfect midpoint between the two while having a consistent rocking techno beat that makes up the core to tie it all together. And yes, I can imagine the ideal fight between them in my head, and it's cool. Laughing Mad. What's this? A long-ass track made it into this higher tier? Shocker, isn't it? Thing is, yeah, this track is stupidly long. It's longer than a few episodes of Death Battle, in fact. It's so long, I could do something that takes a long time in it. I was gonna say make a sandwich, but I'm not a very complex sandwich maker. That'll take me 3 minutes. Anyway, the thing is, I really fucking dig this. I never once grew disinterested. Maybe I just like Final Fantasy enough to get into the headspace of this being like the song of a super long final boss going through stages and changing as the battle goes on. But this is not like a musical track to me. This is like a story told in song, without lyrics. Like a whole ass miniature concept album without the lyrics in it. It starts dramatic and intense, but in a way that feels like it's building tension as the two villains approach each other, kind of talking shit. They have that kind of overbearing presence that you wouldn't expect from their designs. Maybe there's a bit of light fighting going in, but then it kicks into this very carnival sound, evil carnival music, giving a strong clown vibe without forgetting to make sure it stays demented enough. It's golden. It keeps up with this sort of sound for the majority of the song, and despite it being so long, it never feels fatiguing to me, because because just when it starts to get to the point that it might start being fatiguing, it changes up and shifts and gives a different enough vibe that I imagine the battle shifting to something else entirely. By the 3-minute mark, it already sounds like it's building up to something big, and then drops into a very foreboding and tension-building like sting, and it keeps going with those stings until like it is really building something, and then it just keeps going, and it keeps doing this, and it's really good. It's beautiful. The guitar work and the organs are so magical together. The whole song is amazing. It's very easily my favorite of the long-ass tracks, and it's overall absolutely incredible. And the keeping of those carnival vibes really makes it feel less Sephiroth versus Virgil and more Kefka versus Marx, because even though the epicness levels of this track could fit both of those characters, or both of those matchups, the fact that it keeps that specific tone really cements it as Kefka versus Marx. Though it does lose it at some point, namely near the end, but I'm okay with that, because the end is theoretically where God Kefka would come out, and the chanting and the vocalization start. It sounds like the really grandiose stuff is happening with their true godlike might dropping the clown aesthetic. Everything works so well for this song. In fact, this song is so good, it jumped up multiple spots from where it was at the start to now. I have to re-render the video to edit that now. It's just stellar, and I was like, I was scared of the length of this song. But it did not turn me off. I love this track, can't get enough of it. Cities in the Midst of Battle. This track, my god. I liked it on the first listen, and it just kept getting better each time. This track really, really grew on me, and I can't explain why. It has the perfect techno vibe to it, but without taking away the epicness and scale. It sounds exactly like a foreboding and slow track that matches a battle between sentient cities, where countless lives are at stake. The song captures perfectly the vibe I imagine, with Mechagodzilla City adapting what Metroplex does and the Autobots struggling with the sheer firepower aimed at them as Metroplex's indomitable will pushes him on to keep going and brave the wall of railgun fire washing over him. This feels like the Unstoppable Force versus the Immovable Object song, but on a more low-key and slow sense. An Unstoppable Force stays unstoppable because it's calm and thoughtful, making calculated moves to ensure nothing can stop it, versus the Immovable Object that constantly adapts and changes. Immovable because anything that can move it is dealt with through evolving to counter, as opposed to just an object that has a ton of momentum versus something really heavy that can't be pushed. I adore this track. It sounds like it could fit into either series soundtracks as one of the more slower, dreadful songs that plays when things aren't going in the hero's way. Stellar work. Symphonic Eruption. Well, I just love this track. It's really not that complex as to why I really like how it sounds and it's super catchy. Track gets me hype, and it's one I want to listen to over and over again. It really clicks with me. To a degree, that's crazy. Dead Man Stinger. Look, how can I not love a track that uses one of my favorite figures ever and does him this much justice? Going with this gothic horror vibe perfectly fits in line with both of these wrestlers. And while the matchup kind of stinks, as a track, it's great. And the track is even better than great. It's phenomenal. I think this is just a fucking spectacular track that perfectly captures what these two wrestlers are all about, especially Undertaker. I really would love to see what Brandon could do if Death was to grow the balls to do Undertaker versus Crow, because this is spectacular. It's a unique and memorable song that I can listen to for ages on end, my god. But not forgotten. I don't know how much of this song ranking this high comes from my bias. Nier Automata and Nier Replicant are among my favorite games of all time, and together form my favorite duology of video games. They motivate me to want to try Drakengard someday too. This song perfectly captures the sound of Nier Replicant's music, one of the best parts of the game by far, and probably my favorite video game soundtrack, and one of my favorite soundtracks of anything ever. It manages to give that sense of tragedy that pervades every corner of the Nier franchise, a depressing aura that makes the brief moments of hope so much sweeter when you're granted them. The song sounds like it's slot perfectly into a tragic scene, a battle scene, an emotional scene, any number of scenes based on what part of the song you're using. I love this track, and I'm aware it isn't perfect, it might not technically be one of the best, but to me that doesn't matter as much as the emotional feeling I get from it. Because this song captures that feeling I love so much from a game that I love so much, and I can listen to this forever. I love this track. I haven't mentioned anything about Shion or Kingdom Hearts yet, and I'm aware that any fans of the series or her specifically probably want me to, but I don't know much about that side of the matchup. It's my love for Nier that's working for this. A Fool's Requiem. I was so certain nothing will beat out but Not Forgotten for like the number 2 spot and like the number 4 of all commission tracks, but now it's number 5. A Fool's Requiem is just, it's bloody incredible. It's not super epic as one would expect of a finale, well, finale until that one other one that's longer than the list of things I hate about myself, but it still has that finale-esque feel, and I don't know if I can explain why. Maybe it's just because I know it's the finale and I know everyone had handed it, and like that makes it feel like this culmination of years of experience, but the song is very smooth and jazzy, and I've said before I'm not a jazz guy, but there are times where it really works for me. This is just so silky smooth, I can't not love it. It has that sort of climactic battle feel, but not like that sort of climactic battle that's super high scale and high stakes, More so that feeling of a ballad has been built up to for a long time, and goes through a more personal feel. I think it just works very well, and I genuinely love this song. If I had any emotional investment in either character or the parts of their series they're in, and I have to word it like that because I've seen JoJo's Part 1 to 4 but not 5, and I've dabbled in Shin Megami Tensei but not Persona, then I might love this enough to bump it even higher. But as it stands, I mean, 4th favorite track overall is far from a bad place to be, right? Also, I didn't see Brandon's mention to me in the special thanks until nearly a week after this video came out because I was very busy, and also I'm a very bad friend. I guess consider this entire video like a thank you back? I don't know, but thanks for the thanks, mate. And number 1, my favorite track of this part, Awakened Sacrifice. I waited so long for this track. I waited since before the first commission track ranking video even came out. I was waiting for this for so long, and did not disappoint. The entire track is so perfectly in keeping with the characters, the musical inspirations from each series, which are not overpowering but are noticeable in the best way possible. The song begins sorrowful, and remains sorrowful throughout even when it's drowned out by intensity. No matter where the song takes itself, the tragedy always remains, that underlying sadness that eats away at the characters, no matter how much they hide it with anger or stoicness. The music matches a dark fantasy tone incredibly well, sounding like a melody fit for 2 characters who bring their sadness onto the battlefield, and only one will walk away from. The slow start is perfect, the following section is perfect, it's perfect. In maintaining the core underlying sorrow throughout, the changes are seamless and never make it feel like the song is going into unnatural territory. Vocalizations throughout the heavy moments sound like they're singing a heavenly wail of sorrow that one of these warriors will not live to see the next day. And even when the song gets heaviest, like you know, when you assume it'd be going into Awaken Claire in the Berserker armor, it maintains the sorrowful sound overall, because it's not a triumphant moment for either character when they go into those states. It's not some grand Super Saiyan transformation or some amazing Mario power-up. It's horrible, it's painful, it's agonizing. The music ramps up in intensity to fit the fight, but doesn't ever forget what those forms mean when used. The song is amazing. I have no better way to describe it than just simply stunning. I love this track to no end. It is one of my favorite tracks Brandon's ever put out, and it's done what I thought would be impossible in dethroning one of my big 2 favorite tracks. It was beyond well worth the wait. So that was my ranking of the Brandon Yates commission tracks, at least the second part, which is mostly just 1 volume. Going forward, I'm probably going to just be ranking every volume as they come out, because this is, I mean, why wouldn't I do that? This is the perfect time to do that. Commenting on any vocal tracks that have come out since then. That feels like the best way to do this. Oh wait, some of you might be realizing I forgot a track. Well, because I have no idea how to tier this one. This is another track I haven't talked about that I listened to 7 odd times in a row and had no idea what to think. Explosion in E minor. This track is something else. Not only does it feature the actual dead-ass voice actor of Squidward, and apparently is played in E minor, but I can't decide how much I like it, because I do. I think it's fun and good, but like, I don't know how to articulate my thoughts on the track either. So, fuck. Jesus, go listen to it yourself and decide. Decide on your own accord. Fuck you, I'm done. I'm gonna go to have a fucking nap. What? But you got a problem with VTuber Nem's Bloodreich? Good. I hope this haunts your dreams, because I'm just gonna have to fucking deal with it, bro. This model, by the way, was made by Kitty. She is amazing, and I love her very much. So I've got a Patreon now, and I promised to shout out the patrons at the end of videos. And you can tell by my stammering and my awkwardness that I am a professional at this, and I'm very good, and I know exactly what I'm doing every time, all the time. That's me. Nemesis Bloodreich, famously know everything he's doing guy. Let's just get to the patrons. Special thank you to our patrons, One Fish Mob, who, by the way, joined as a patron before I even announced it, which freaked me the fuck out. Mr. Catface, The Milkman, Charcoal FTW, Scumlord Ray, Sam, Balzette, Retro, Mateo the Wolfie, Mr. Strange, Vincent Young, Sir Jalen III, Benton Majora, I'm Here to Lurk and Steal Memes, Mal, Newbie, Jeremiah Cortez. That's everyone. I don't know why I said there was someone else coming after that. Thank to all of you for supporting the channel. I definitely pronounced all of your names 100% correctly, because I am a YouTuber, and that means you will believe me. I am just, yep, that's me. I'm smart and I know everything. Fuck off.